Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I am still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Lara Tai. Lara was a social worker turned actor, improv performer, and dancer. She and I met during an improv fundraiser that she actually started and organized for relief efforts in the Ukraine. It was a Zoom improv fundraiser where she got a whole bunch of people from the improv community here in Toronto together to do improv live on Zoom. It was terrifying. It was fun. It was an incredible opportunity to meet some wonderful improvisers within the Toronto area, even though we had to be on Zoom. It was pretty great. And I keep in touch with a lot of the people from that fundraiser. So thank you, Lara, for introducing me to that incredible community. We talk a lot during this episode about empathy. Empathy is something that I've talked about a lot on this podcast because I'm of the belief that being a creative, being an artist, being an actor is one of the kind of rare ways to truly develop pure, genuine empathy for others, because you're putting yourself in the shoes, in the skin, in the life of another human being, either a character or someone real or existing in the world that you get to portray. She and I talk about that in relation to her career as a social worker, obviously huge amounts of empathy in a career like social work, but how she's also pulled that now into her career as an actor and how much it has benefited her. I hope you enjoy this wonderful episode with the incredibly talented Lara Tai. The training is something, and again, I know we'll touch on it a bit later on, but the training is something I never, in my naivete, thought would be as huge of a thing as it really is.
It is the gold. When people see your resume, the doors that you think are closed will open just because of seeing your training, and people look at your training. They don't have time. So what they will do is look at your training. They will look at your training, especially if you're new. They will, if you have tons and tons of training, it communicates, hey, this person really cares about the craft. And that's what they're trying to look for, who cares about the craft besides who does a good job. They're trying to look for a combination of both because they care. Like from producer to director to casting director to whatever, everybody's got the same passion you do. It's just going to reflect in different ways. Even the money guys that are investing and finding the money for the films, right? They all are professional dreamers. That's what I noticed, and it's really been fun to be mentored and meet them and just find the people that you can connect to that love stories, telling stories,
So with that, tell me how you got into this business of acting.
Well, it started ever since the Care Bears were playing their tribute concert at Ontario Place.
Good times.
I wanted to be not that person that's probably crying inside that costume, but I wanted to be a performer. And I actually staved off that dream because I'm like, how can I do that? Especially being BIPOC, like I'm half Chinese and half East Indian. So you kind of thought, well, there's not somebody that looks like me, and I don't even think that they want that on there. So it was kind of a journey, but I was like, train. So I started training from when I was young. I got into theater and band and choirs. Choirs was like, train in choirs because that's going to teach you a lot, especially in your like junior years. Do choirs, right? If you can. It teach you to, or if you really are adverse to singing, train in like your football, like a cheerleading squad or, one of those things, or any type of team, but get into a team and then continue your training. Because training is gold. Yeah.
So you were a very creative person growing up. And then, so did you pursue a career in acting like post-secondary, or how did you get to?
No.
No, tell me more.
Because being Asian, and my Asian friends will know this and laugh, but I'm sure, honestly, it's a universal story. It's like your parents just are like, well, what does that pay you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's not a job. I mean, it's kind of for Asian parents, it's like a nightmare. So you're trying not to traumatize your parents if you say you're going to go into the arts full time. So I spent many years, going into I wanted to be a psychiatrist at one point, and I still love psychology. Um, but I really kept this as a hobby. I really like singing. I did it every single night. I tried to sound like Whitney Houston and went through the depression of not sounding like her, and then went through the joy of realizing I don't have to sound like her. But I really just enjoyed the arts for what it was. For me, it just really gave me an expression. It was really like my second arm. It was just really true to me, and it's my highest marks. And I would just always deny it. I get like like 80s or 70s in everything else, but then I get like 98. I get like 100 in music and dance and all these things, and I still staved it off, trying to do psychology and psychiatry, and even though I sort of had some small little dreams, you can't really stop yourself from dreaming. It was like, oh man, like I'm going to, listen to my Asian parents and practicalize. So going to school, going to university, um, 'cause you can't be stupid and being an Asian parent. I know it sounds like stereotypes, but there's a lot of us, especially being Indian and Chinese, like these global powers, you can't be stupid, right? So, and stupid means not going to college. Like again, it will literally bring them into anxiety. So a lot of times you're trying to do things to appease your family, to just make sure that they don't go and have a heart attack. And then you get older and realize you're going to have to make the shift, even if you're 25 or upwards, you're going to have to make that shift to being like, I'm going to do something for myself. And then you go through your own trauma of letting go of not appeasing your parents, right? So,
So
but
did you?
arts kept on finding me. Um, in university, again, like when I was getting lower marks in other things, I was starting to get like high marks in cinematography and cinema studies. I actually did a minor a major in English literature. My psychiatry degree ended up becoming English drama and cinematography and cinema studies at University of Toronto. And then I went into a full-time job in helping people and helping impoverished people. And I was there for a long time, and but still training. I think for me, there's a part of me that was, whenever I watched a movie, I had to sort of be that person. I would literally visualize myself in that scene or how I could do that scene, and then I started off with singing, dancing, and then I went into acting because one of my friends just said, "Hey, I really see you as an actress." And sometimes you really got to listen to your friends, Sometimes when they see you as something, it's really wise to tap into that. So when I tapped into that advice, I was like, you know what, this really is a great way to culminate your singing and your dancing career. Because then, in singing and dancing, there's high expectations, right? You got to be like Barishnikov or you got to be like Whitney Houston. But in acting, even if you don't do it well, it's considered a special skill. So like everything's up when you're an actor. Like your karaoke, special skill. You being able to put on slippers, special skill. You being able to open the oven, special skill. Like it's just, it all works.
When you were younger, in your family, and they were pushing more towards a quote unquote traditional career path, what made you continue your creativity and your singing and stuff like that in choir and band? Was there a push to do music creatively within your family, or did that just kind of come from you?
So ironically, my family is very, very musical and artistic. Like I have a lot of family that are in the industry. And I would sort of be like, oh, they're in the industry, because they had parents that maybe weren't stressing them out. My parents were like, you got to do education and it's got to not be the arts, right? So I kind of had to deal with that for a little while before anything else. But my other, even from them, I learned how to sing. Like they were the ones singing. But they were in practical jobs. They were teachers and they were social workers and they worked for PR and stuff like that. The most is PR that they did. So I think going back to it, as much as they said don't be in the arts, they were singing all the time, dancing all the time. Music was very strong in my house. And that inclination was actually genetic. Like my family really is kind of the Indian Jacksons. And it's funny to see it because as we get to know most of the family, we're realizing they're in musical theater and they're doing it professionally. They're doing singing professionally. They're doing acting professionally. I have some family that are, TV actors as well and things like that, and they're all doing well. And I just sort of looked at them and being like, wow, that's great that they did that. And they had the gumption to do that. And I was just kind of sitting back being like, I need to be in this practical job because it pays well. And I don't know how to navigate that kind of like life of being able to find your income on your own. I like these fixed jobs that gave you benefits, right? And but I still trained. Like through all that time, I trained. I've got over 15 years of training, like 20 years of training. Like I've got a lot of training. I really trained when I was young. I really started off very, very young and kept it going because it was just very encouraging to me. It was really how I was. It's just part of you. And I remember even being in university, just going for my first musical and it just really feeling like home. Like being on stage felt more like home and standing on that stage felt more like home than actually just sitting down and watching TV in your home. I can't explain it. And I think, people that are in the arts that are actors, they really know this. I just spent a lot more time denying it than I think a lot of other actors did at that time. But I couldn't stop from training. So I was always training I trained through my doubts, basically. And it was really hard because you're a person of color and right now we're talking about it, that we're starting to see diversity come up really big, right? But it was really something that people must understand is very hard. It's very hard when you don't see somebody like you and very much you're told you're not welcome here. So for us, we've got that second level of trying to pursue acting with that type of, there's not enough stability for people yet. When you go in, you're like, well, I'm dealing with stereotypes. I'm dealing with people already saying that they're not the stories that we want to tell. And we're saying that we're not welcome here. So those were tricky things that we had to sort of navigate through. And it's really, in the last 10 years, have really changed. I mean, it's really, I think a lot of us that are from either African Canadian to me, who's biracial, who's Chinese and Indian, I think we're all having such an emotional like moment to see people like us on TV, like where you see Black Panthers or Shang-Chi or some of these stories. It's the idea of acceptance, and that's what we're really looking for through movies and theater, acceptance, So I think for me, it's a very roundabout way. It's a lovely thing that I'm now full-time arts. Didn't think I'd get here, but I did. But doing a job was amazing because, I don't believe in the starving artist if you don't have to be. Like artists are very resourceful and it's about tapping into your resourcefulness. So you don't have to be absolutely like starving or working a very dead end job that's taking all your energy and all your artistic energy because you're just trying to hold down that job. Like you can have a full-time job. Like for me, even though I had a straight-laced full-time job that would not necessarily give me the flexibility to go on auditions, I knew at that time that wasn't the time for me to go on auditions. That was the time for me to train. And I trained so long. And my resume is really long when it comes to it. But it was also like I love doing this stuff. It was like the way I hung out with people, right? So, that came to fruition. And I just knew that this type of job, right? You really need to be ready for it. I mean, we believe in the dreamer side of it, but there's long hours. They're at different times. If they do a rewrite, you suddenly have to memorize it and be able to do it right away within an hour, or half an hour. If they want to improvise on set, you have to learn how to roll with those punches. And you also have to figure out how to like you're morphing as an actor, you're morphing into somebody else, some human being's other experience. You're trying to be a human being, just not the human being that you are. You're trying to be somebody else. And that takes a lot of journey. It takes a lot to be that type of a storyteller and to use that much empathy and your soul into it, because some of these stories are very strong. Like one of the stories I auditioned for um, involved, seeing a loved one die. And I had to go, and you can't just mimic that with lines. You have to find a healthy way into that, and you have to go through that journey because that's what people are wanting to see. We're wanting to see life on the camera, and it's really not this kind of thing where it's like, ooh, I'm saying a couple of words here, and there's a distinction. You are really going deep into somebody else's life, and you're having to put their metabolism, their thinking, their brain cells into your brain cells by experience. You're having to put their experience into you, and then you're able to channel it out, and you have a responsibility to that story because that's somebody's story, that's somebody's life. And so that's really, as I even find the depth of acting, because it's really tough. You're just thinking, oh, maybe I'm saying some lies. No, it's really this human journey that you're going through to push it out. And all the roles I've done, and all the TV shows that I've auditioned for, it's like they've been beautiful, beautiful stories. And each one of them have been such a joy to have learned about that person's life and to be able to give it out on stage, because maybe that person doesn't have the voice to tell it, but I can be that person's voice, you know?
Yeah.
And I think for me, I was given a lot of emotionally compelling work to sort of audition for, which was crazy. And I was like, wow, that just made you more deeper. And so I had seen some of it being in social services, like when you work for the impoverished, you get to see people not at their best, struggling and trying to find, food, trying to find happiness, and they don't have friends. They might be by themselves, and we're their friends. So it's funny how social work and working for the impoverished was a very much one of the most amazing backgrounds for me to be an actor, because a lot of the skill set that I used to help people in these, there's a lot of shelter work in Toronto. There's a lot of social assistance. There's welfare. There's all these things that are there, right? There's a lot of food banks, right? You get to see people really kind of, go through their journey, and there's so many stories in that whole catchment. I mean, if an actor really wants to train, I say, like, go on one of these, like sometimes they have like missions where you just walk around the city and you hand out sandwiches. Do that and see what that does for you. And don't do it for the sake of learning a story for you to be a better actor, but it just allows you to be a better human, and that empathy gets honed in. So when you're putting it into the auditions that you get, you're able to listen to it, pick up on it more, because it's quite intricate, even for comedy. But when you're wanting to do films, like, these are very delicate stories, and you can't just sort of be one dimensionally on the top surface level. You got to find your way in, but you got to find your way in such a way that you don't get destroyed by it, because these are very strong stories. And yeah, like, I just think that, like, social work gives you a tough skin,
Yeah.
but you can't lose your heart, because if you do, and that's the thing with acting too. It's like, if you're given all these stories but you don't have a heart and a personal sincerity or empathy towards it, I mean, why are you doing it? Like, are you trying to just get that pretty dress? I mean, they're gorgeous. Are you trying to get that stylist? Are you trying to get thousands of people to know you? Because even that, after a little while, you get it's very draining. So, like, empathy is your way, like, into everything. And I think that me working at social services, like working at these kind of helping the impoverished types of jobs, I did it because I wanted to grow in my empathy. I wanted to be a better human being. I didn't know necessarily at the time that I was going to be an actor. I was just like, I just want to make sure that I'm paying attention to life. And then that became, suddenly my life evolved into acting. I mean, it was just something that I was designed to do, but I always denied. And then I couldn't deny it anymore, because it was definitely where my skill set was, because I did all this paperwork, but, like, and that stuff, like, your job, you're like, doing these strong careers gives you also a confidence outside of acting, like, where you're not arrogant, but you're not like, I don't need this other person to make me and define my value. you
Yeah,
know? And I
totally.
think that's the best way to come into the industry for the new actors that want to come in, and for me who's still like an actor, just trying to get my next role. But I think, this business, there's a lot of great people, but there's also a lot of tough situations that can happen as well.
Hmm.
And you gotta know yourself before you come into it, you know? And a lot of questions you can answer on your own first before you have to ask somebody. So you don't have to be a victim in this industry. But you can know the positive situations, and you can know the negative situations, and you can be like, I'm just going to lily pad towards the positive situations. So I think that sometimes coming from another career, there gets to be that like beautiful, like, man, I just finished a full work day. I have nothing to prove to you. I'm going to go to the pub and get my food and a nice drink. And who are you? High profile person? Don't care. like we both understand the idea of you worked, I worked, and it's time to just relax. And it's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny how that disposition, I was surprised how that disposition translates across the board. I mean, I think it's very intimidating, and people want to meet these prominent people. We just had the Oscars, right? And people are dying to get into that room, right? But day to day, there's actually a work life that these guys have, and they've got a 9 to 5 that they got to do. And they got that same kind of disposition of like, I just finished my job. Like, I'll talk to you, but let's joke. Like, let's not make it this really huge power play. Like, I have no time. I'm tired of that. Like, I just want to listen to somebody who's going to tell me some fun story. And
Yeah.
ironically enough, like you can go to these parties and just find one of those people. Like, I found that like when I've gone to TIFF or some of these places, right, where you get to network, because I also went to film school, and that opened up doors because everybody who is a filmmaker or an actor on a high level started off like you and I at the beginning as a student. Whether or not they went to film school or whether or not they were trying to get that camcorder and make their first movie, everybody started off from that place.
Yeah.
And so that's the place of camaraderie too. Like when I was mentored by different producers and different directors, and they are doing really strong work in the city, and they've just been leveling up every single year. They just were like, yeah, I remember that time that I was PAing. I remember that time that I had to get coffee for that person. I remember that time where I didn't have bus fare, and they just have decent families that they're just trying to support and do this job that's a dreamer job. It's like, how do you make money off of a dreamer job? So I think sometimes when I see people network, sometimes they're like, well, I need to maybe say something or be something, but you really don't. You just need to be who you are, be very transparent, and see who's willing to accept that versus trying to be accepted by everybody. There's not everybody, we're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but that's a good thing. It would be overwhelming if everybody liked you or you liked
Yes.
everybody,
Yeah.
right? So when you're trying to go like and get noticed, because we were talking about it, it's like there's this constant question in every panel: how do I get seen?
How do I
But
get in the
really,
room?
how do I get in the room? And
Yeah.
I've been trying so hard. Why can't I get in the room? And it becomes so much pain. You hear it, right? And you're like, oh, like I understand that struggle. But that might not be the question you need to ask, right? Because to be seen is just to do the work. Just do the work, and people will see. People who don't have people want, like, they're doing the work, so they don't have time to like what's the word? Like every single day somebody needs an opportunity. Like they need somebody to work, right? So your opportunity can come. Like I used to have this saying that really did well for me, win by default. Like you just stick in there long enough. You just train, but stick in there long enough until somebody says uncle and says, yes, you could come onto my project.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just have to maybe, be careful with your life and balance your life. Like make sure that you're going out on those paddleboarding trips, and make sure that you are, what's the word? You're going to, you know, go on that date that you should. Like it's just, you should do all those things. But then on the other side, you're trying to get noticed and try to do all this work here this way. You got to not ask that, because then that puts the power in somebody else's hands. and then there's becomes this ego thing of like maybe I need to say something that really isn't from me authentically, but I don't know. Is that the thing that attracts you? And it's like not that. It's like a lot of times people are willing to accept you where you're at, and the person that's not is just not meant to be a part of your clan. Like there's a lot of clan building. I call it clan building, but
I love it. I'm Scottish. I love the word clan. Yep.
but it's so true. Like it's humans are looking for their clan, and
Yeah.
as I go higher and I learn more about the acting world, and I get into these rooms and I see people, they're just the pretense is not there. They're just trying to look for who's safe, who can do the job, and who can be fun doing it, who can be part of this clan, and who's part of this team. That's why I think. Remember when I think I was saying, the best thing you can do when you're first starting off is join a choir, join a dance troupe, join a football league. It's really teams, and it's this idea of or volleyball. It's a great thing, a volleyball team, right? Like there's times when you are the setter upper, sometimes you're the server, and you're the smasher, but each component is needed so that you can send the ball over. It's the same thing with like movie teams. Like sure, like when in a movie you have like the main actor, but it's really even that main actor knows that they are part of a team. That's why you saw like Keanu Reeves just carry gaffer cords and things like that. Because he wanted to. It's not because he's like a diva too. Like it's just
Yeah.
he's. I'm sure when he goes to, we don't ever know what these people are thinking, right? But I'm sure that like, when people are on set, they understand that they're a team, and to be honest, the ones that keep on getting asked to work again, whether it be acting or being directing or whatever, are people that understand this team mindset, So it's like, I'm going to do whatever for this thing, this movie to go forward, right? So I remember when I was like first starting off, like doing film school, it's like wrapping cord. Like I still have the knack. If I'm on a set, I won't do it because you're supposed to not do it, but there's an instinct of me that wants to, if I see cord on the floor, I want to move it and clear it because that's what I used to do as a PA. I used to just like make sure that there was enough sandbags on the lights and make sure that the cord was wrapped in the right direction as my cinematography teacher taught. And I remember the last commercial I shot, I was kind of like talking to the AD, just asking what kind of coat she was wearing because, when you're on these like exterior shoots, right, your coat is your coat is your best friend, right? So I was just like, what coat you're wearing? What kind of boots you're wearing, right? It's not like the designer jeans. It's like the Canadian Tire industrial rubber toed shoes, right? So I think that like the actors that I've seen work regularly, a lot of times they're like this. They understand that they're part of a team. They are the talent, so they understand if they're not like on indies, you kind of jump in and do everything, right? But like really like student films and whatever. But when you're on like a professional set, they kind of know like, oh, you know what? If the lighting is taking a long time to set up, then I better make sure that I'm on my lines so that when I'm there, I'm not wasting people's time by not being off book. Like they're not just thinking I need to be off book because of my craft. They're thinking I need to be off book because of my performance, but they're also thinking I need to be considerate of all the components that put together this movie. And if I do my component correctly, then together we're all going to make this movie become this beautiful thing. And that's the thing that melts your heart. It's not just the actor's performance. It's the idea that the the set designer is there just kind of doing all the details that they can, like you saw in Harry Potter, like they designed in areas that they didn't even shoot, but they put that attention to detail. Or you got that DOP that's just making sure that the camera and the lighting is just right so that you look beautiful, So that's why they're sitting there fiddling, and you're like, why is there another hour? Because they're just making sure that image that they capture of you is just so beautiful. And then when you get on stage, you're like, because everybody's looking for their demo footage, right? But they're just trying to get the pretty shot.
Yeah.
So let them findangle with their lights. Let them findangle with the things that they need to, right? And if it takes you another hour, yes. But whatever. Like these shoots are like your shoots are just sort of, they're what, 1 day, 3 days for commercials. They're like what, if you get a series regular, they're what, like 63 days.
Yeah.
3 days out of your life. That's like what, 2-3 months. That's it. You got all that time to sort of wait around to do nothing. So, like, whether or not you're there and the shoot times and the scheduling go off, I think that it's healthier to sort of just prep yourself that, like, yeah, in this moment, the schedule may be on time, but usually they're always changing schedules.
Yeah.
But you just go there and it's like, what, 1, 2 days out of your life, 3 months out of your life, whatever, let it go up and down, whatever. People are just trying to do the best they can to solve problems and make sure that
Mm-hmm.
this movie gets shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, you can go off to San Tropez and just chill on a beach or something and be like, your time is your own, like at this point in time, it's like, you know, I think there's so many people that are like, when they get on set, there's not so many people because I just think that like when people are starting off, they're like, why am I waiting so long, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't understand teams, maybe,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that's for your own mental health. Understand that component, and you won't. You'll find that you'll have less anxiety on set when
Yeah.
you understand that people's. It's not hard. Like you can go to YouTube and Google like people's roles, and then you find out like when I was on set doing that commercial. It's now airing, right? We've aired it, right? And it's very simple. I didn't have to do anything crazy for it, which was amazing. But I just, you always have to have bigger ears, you know? You just gotta listen, really just what's happening around you besides knowing your moment to focus. You really should sort of balance the two. Because if you just only focus on your lines, you'll just be stressed because you're not engaged in the day, right? And then if you're listening too much to people, then you won't focus on your lines. So you just have to balance that time between the two. It's like you just really take a moment when you get on set, survey the land basically. What are people saying? What are people doing? Like listen to your first ADs. Do you know what your first AD is doing? I'm telling you, it's not the director, but the first ADs are going to be the ones that are going to tell you everything that you
Mm-hmm.
need to know, right? Listen to what's being said by those guys. Listen to what's being said by the PAs, because you're gonna know everything from those guys more than you're gonna know it from the director. The director has so much on their plate. They have to really kind of manage so much. They have to manage like 30 to 100 people, and everybody's gonna ask them to solve a problem. And it's delegated between all the people, but that's like a lot, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
coming into that world, right? You don't have to get overwhelmed. You just have to know that people are running around. Like you have to know the different parts, of the body
Mm-hmm.
almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like, I think going back to initially coming from another job, it really helps you to understand that. Your
Yeah.
knowledge of teams is going to be much more valuable to you than thinking, how do I say this word or how do I say my line? Like your lines, sure, that's obvious, right? You figure out your acting performance and you do what you need to get there. But you must add on to yourself the idea that it's important for you as an actor to know what happens with like as many roles that you can see that form up this movie team or this commercial team to shoot this thing, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and you will be the wiser for it. It helps you to get more jobs when you're like this. And it helps you to also maybe find out another passion. Because actors are kind of everything. And, there's so many people that start off in acting but found another role that they love so much,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that like when you have work experience from other jobs, I mean, not to knock waitressing, because that's a great character building job, but you can be in something like me. I was in social services. I was in helping impoverished people. You're in the medical field, and there's so many more that's like that. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
I just hear so much when people are like, "How do I stand out?" And then the answer just never seems to be. You could tell it's not satisfying to the person when they hear
Right.
it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
They're
just as
looking for the
simple as like,
magic.
yeah, like get
Yeah.
outside of yourself,
Yeah.
and you'll like, be excited for it because sometimes maybe the best friend you'll make on that set is not necessarily the other actors, but it might be that AD, it might be that
Mm-hmm.
PA, it might be that gaffer. And to be honest, a lot of times those guys are the ones that will get you your information to your next gig,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So true. I want to touch on the lovely community that you just introduced me to on
Yes.
the weekend. This will not air with the right timeline, but you introduced me to a wonderful group of human beings, improv human beings, and we took part in a fundraiser for an incredible foundation to raise funds for Ukraine.
Yes.
but what an amazing group of people. Online improv community. Tell me more about that beautiful clan that you have of improvisers and comedians.
Well, this is the thing. It's like there's so many ways that human beings are making community and clans. And it's like as an actor, you can build community when you're waiting for that next gig or that next big break or whatever. Like you don't have to wait for that. Sometimes even just doing something where you're just building community can be satisfying to you, right? And so, well, there was a need. Obviously, we know that Ukraine is there's issues, war issues in Ukraine, and our hearts go out to that because there's been a lot of issues of war, whether or not you're Ukrainian or Chinese or Japanese or Afghanistani or anything. There's been a lot of war. You know, people are very warring people, and they've been put in dire situations. So I think just empathizing with, I even want to cry right now. It's like these poor families that are being torn apart and having to deal with that. So I had a friend that went over right away to do some of the relief work, and I've known him for years, so I knew that his organization was one that was just really going to help the people. So I knew that all I needed to do was raise funds, you know? And because I had been a part of the Toronto improv community, which is an amazing community, we all get together and we've been working on our craft, whether or not it's to be better actors for professional reasons or whether or not we just love improv and we like goofing off with our friends. Like for maybe 2 years, this group of people, we were all online doing improv shows online for 2 years.
Awesome.
Every Wednesday, every Sunday, we were doing this, and we really became friends over it. And there was like a comfortability that we all had, And so I said, listen, I don't know necessarily how to put this together. I don't know if I have that personal draw that I could get people to want to donate with me, but I just knew I had faith. And I was like, I'm not going to limit myself. Let me just ask my friends and see who will come. And we built up relationship for that long, right? And one by one, I asked my friend Chili, and he said, yeah, I'm going to do this, And him and I got together, and then we asked some of the people that we had been improvising with for so many years, and they're like, yeah, because they knew us, and they knew that we had already demonstrated that we are not only just friends, but that we had done projects. Because I produce improv shows in the city, local improv shows in the city for people to try improv, and just build community. And I've enjoyed it as well. And so we had this show that I didn't even realize it was on the Oscar night. So I found out about things that happened at this Oscar later.
Yep, me too. Yeah.
And so my conversation wasn't about what we're all conversating about right now, but my conversation was like, in 1 hour, we raised about $800 online with people, and it was just amazing, right? Like, how do you raise that much money? But I'm like, I almost like wanted to call it the power hour, right? It's like when people focus, look what gets done in 1 hour. Because other people have raised a lot of money, but usually do it over a long time. We did it online in 1 hour. We got close to $1,000 done. Like that's powerful. So imagine when sorry.
It's okay.
I'm getting like praise from somebody or some bell from above.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about that. Like, first of all, it was just me, just one person. Well, actually, it was my friend. It was one person, right? And he just said, I'm going to Ukraine. And he went like literally the first week that was happening. So he was like going really close. And he went to Romania, and they drive into Ukraine.
Yeah.
And him and I had been friends for years, right? So I'm like, I knew that he's trustworthy. So I'm like, oh, if all I need to do is raise money, then that's what I'm going to do. He's already down there, just going to raise some money, right? And what's amazing about it too is that it's 3 to 1, literally. So it's like the $800 that you make is like close to 3,000 over there for them, right? So our money goes a long way. So we got a whole bunch of people together. So it's like one person became 2 people, became 10 people, became 20 people. And then you and I had met sort of on Facebook, but I think we're definitely going to be destined to be brunch buddies. But
I hope so.
oh, it's definitely going to happen.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, we just got together and did this show, and for me, it even surprised me. It was a learning lesson for me. And because I had been mentored by certain prominent people, they were tuning in, you know. I didn't say that at the time, but because I didn't want to intimidate anybody, but you never
Hmm.
know who's watching. And in
Yep.
Toronto, you're literally going to be right beside a producer. So, try to watch out for that, not
Yep.
to be like, can you give me a gig? But people are watching for integrity,
Hmm.
and they're going to watch in the places you won't suspect, right? So,
Hmm.
all these people that showed up, right? Because we had some people that canceled
Yeah.
because it didn't serve their needs, right?
Right.
And me and the organizer were talking about it. We're like, well, it's not even about hating on them, but it's like, we never promoted that there were, possibly some like prominent people watching this, right? Especially in the entertainment
Right.
industry, right?
Hmm.
We never promoted that because I didn't want to intimidate the people that were performing. But I know that those people that were watching, if they tuned in, appreciate seeing integrity in its honest form, where it's not
Hmm.
solicited, it's not, it didn't have all the flair of the Oscars,
Hmm.
But it was just this honest moment of humans coming together to help other humans. Like, I don't have a lot of money. People didn't have a lot of money.
Hmm.
And we just raised so much over 1 hour, and there's huge, massive teams that kind of reach out, and I was just excited about that. And to
Yeah.
get people to sort of come on the journey, hey, do you want to do this? They're like, yep. So those
Yeah.
20 people didn't watch the Oscars like I did either,
Hmm.
and the Oscars is a beautiful, celebrated time, but it was beautiful to see people that we're gonna TiVo that later, and
Yeah.
they were gonna,
Yeah.
and they came in to have this moment with us, and we stayed there from 8 to 10.
Hmm.
So we really,
Yeah.
we really raced the Oscars, and we were just there raising money, and somebody was watching, and they donated. People
Yeah.
donated, and if that's
So
what we can
cool.
do in an hour, imagine what we can do longer than that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so much fun. And this goes against the team aspect of it because this was completely self serving for me, in that
That
I am still on a high from it. Because I had never really done anything like that before. It was just, I've done some improv, but it's always been with people that I know, right? Like
hmm
friends. And these are people who I've never met. And it was just, I was so filled with just warm, oozy joy the whole time. I had to mute myself because I was just cackling the entire time, even though I know you want, they were like, yes, we want to hear people laugh. I'm like, nobody wants to hear me laugh as much as I'm laughing. I was just so happy. It was just so great. Like, what a wonderful group of generous humans, especially you. Like, it was just wonderful.
Oh,
It was
thank
just so good.
you. Well, that's another thing too, right? Like, I think it's about vetting out your clan. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily have some huge criteria, but it was just the idea of whoever was going to come. I was also going to make sure that they were safe, you know?
Right.
So
Yes.
the people that I asked to be a part of it were very generous people. They're very loving people. They're very decent human beings. Doesn't mean that everybody's not in comparison. It just means that, like, these people, I had a specific intention of asking them. They were not only people that were great performers, but they were just lovely people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, they actually book a lot. A lot of those
Mm-hmm.
people have got a profession. That's why when I was able to sort of list what they did, it was quite prominent stuff that they did, you
Right.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And we had actors that were on TV series regulars, and we had people that were doing, they're strong show promoters in the city. They create great comedy shows for community to learn how to do improv. Like, they're all very supportive people, and so that's really important too. Like, one of the things was not only to raise money for Ukraine, but to make sure that the experience for everybody involved, that was enriching and that was growing
Mm-hmm.
for them, and that was about their supporting their well-being and their mental health, and making sure that
Mm-hmm.
each player felt that great way as well, you
Yeah.
know?
Do you have any crazy fun on set, memorable on set or in class or in improv stories?
Okay, this one was really fun. I was dancing in a Nelly Furtado music video, right? It's a long time.
What?
Yeah, like a long time ago. Like, cause Nelly Furtado, actually, she's a Torontonian, like,
Yeah.
art, right? She's beautiful. And she's gorgeous.
I
She's
bet. Oh,
gorgeous
yeah.
in
Yeah.
person. quite striking. And so, and by that time she was a mama too. She looked so young and she was a mama. But yeah, I was not even a principal dancer. I was one of the extras.
Cool.
And we were in the music video and stuff. And so at one point, because I had known the principal dancers, like I dance as well in the city, but at that gig, I wasn't hired as a principal dancer. I was more background, and I knew the principal dancers from the dance scene, right? And again, it's about building your community and building your friendship, right? So we had this beautiful kind of camaraderie with each other, which showed up on stage. So at one point, I was one of the principal dancers. Her name is AC, and she's a beautiful director. Now she's a director, a choreographer in Canada, really putting forward African Canadian dance. Amazing, striking, beautiful girl, and just a beautiful dancer. She's one of the principals. So her and I have a very joking relationship. So at one point there was a dance circle. So her and I really went like, as if we went so deep into dancing, like it was almost like a dance challenge. And we were laughing. We were having so much fun because we had that rapport, right? And we'd been in other music videos together before too. But at that moment, it just caught the moment and excitement, right? And so like then all the cameras got on us and just kind of videotaped us all and stuff like that. And so sometimes when you want to level up, it's like, how do you want to be seen? Just do what you were authentically meant to do and asked to do, and then you just level up, right? So I just found that like a lot of times it was like literally taking the direction. If they told me to stand in this one place and do a certain thing, I just made sure I did that. And then it would just level up, right? And so that was a moment where they invited people to go and do a dance thing. But because I had had this relationship, this friendship with AC for a long time, Essie, for a long time, we were able to play off of each other, and then that sort of got to a fruition of a moment, right? And so it was just, I think, sure, you get more of a look, right? People can look at you, right? But I think for me, I love it because of the energy. It was a true like dance moment where we just really caught the vibe of the joy of dancing and loving it, right? And I think they tried to get one of the principal dancers to recreate the same thing, but they couldn't. Like,
it wasn't authentic. Yeah.
It was just like I'm like, wow, because the stereotype is that there's mean people and I need to put up my ego to protect myself. It's like, no, there's a lot more nice people that are trying to, just like you, stay away from the mean people, and they're just trying to do an honest day's work.
Yeah.
And those people are the ones that you want to meet and really do business with. You don't want the people that promise you the world and, take you up too fast. You want those people that you're going to work side by side with, because then you're going to have more of an authentic journey that won't trigger your mental health. Because sometimes we've heard of the good situations in Hollywood and we've heard the bad situations in Hollywood, right? Your training is going to help you navigate through that so that you can protect yourself.
Yeah.
Not with walls, but with knowledge, know?
And with a foundation, right?
Yes.
Like with that strong foundation, you can use every analogy about building houses on sand or brick or whatever you want, but it's true, right? If you have a solid foundation that is unshakable and you can fall back on, the rejection and the weirdness and instability and uncertainty of this industry becomes so much more manageable because you have a solid foundation, for sure.
And if you want to bring certainty in your industry, it's through relationship. Because you may not know your next gig, but you know your friend, and your friend might be like, hey, I remember I was talking to some professional ADs, because if you really want, like I said, if you want to know the schedule, if you want to find out what's shooting next, all the ADs talk to each other, all the other, like TIFF is like the Christmas part, is like the work Christmas party. It really is. So a lot of times people just want to be like, hey, like what's in the potluck? What did you bring? And some mergers happen because selling happens and marketing and distribution, and it's really worth it if you get to know a little bit of that stuff. But humans are really looking to connect, and you'd be surprised how simple things on set, like you will have like a high level set, but if it's ice cream day, everybody gets excited, including the celebrity, including the celebrity actor that's there. Right?
It's so true.
The ice cream day. Oh, did you get sprinkles? Oh, that's great, right? It's like, and it becomes this joke, and you're like, meanwhile they're doing like a Marvel movie or something, like
Yeah.
you're just like you're doing this amazing movie that you're like you think that everybody needs to be on their P's and Q's. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, everybody knows it. Everybody knows their job. That's why they've been pulled into this environment.
Yeah.
But ice cream day is ice cream day.
Yeah. Humans are
And I think that,
humans.
yeah, and yeah, you just got to remember they're humans. And anybody that's making you feel intimidated, then maybe you don't have to worry about appeasing them. It's just you're looking for the people that you can be human with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that you are looking forward to this year?
This year, I want to be honest, I'm just looking forward to getting on a paddleboard.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, but Toronto water, can't you just clean up? But I think I'm training for a series regular. I'm hoping to get that. I'm
Nice.
doing my hardest. I'm auditioning like crazy.
Okay.
That's what I'd like to do, but I'm making sure that I'm up on my training. Like I know we've been saying training like crazy, but I'm like, that's the door that opens everything. And you don't have to spend tons of time. Like you also have to know when your education, you're going to have to not worry about talking to your teacher about something. It's going to be a time where you have to now assert that you're a professional and you're going to make these decisions in that industry. But you can never have enough training, wherever it may be that you get it from, right? And it's the way that you're going to get seen. It's the way that you're going to open the doors, and it's going to be the way that you're going to open doors for yourself. Because really, this industry is about opening doors for yourself. And finding how to do that professionally and getting on your team and stuff.
Yeah.
But like I said, going to that regular job, it's going to also develop the confidence that doesn't make you dependent on people's words in the industry, in an unbalanced way where you're like, you don't know and you're waiting for them to accept you and they don't, and then it's really wreaked havoc on your world. I mean, it shouldn't be that if you don't get this opportunity that you're like devastated to such a personal level that you can't function, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
For sure. I think in having, again, it comes back to the foundation, right? Where if you have your people, you have rejection is hard. If you don't get the role that you worked so hard on, you become emotionally invested in.
Yes.
Because that's the most beautiful part of this job is how emotionally invested we can get in some of the roles that we get beautifully delivered into our inbox. But yeah, being able to step out of it healthily and continue is tough. But I think, like you're saying, having that foundation and that foundation of training, but also community, will help you get through that for sure.
Yeah, and it's just you've got a life, and the acting is a part of that beautiful life, and that's kind of what people are looking for. It's like, what in your life can you show in your acting that they don't know?
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you, Lara, for being my guest this week. Thank you for introducing me to your wonderful improv community and including me in that fantastic fundraiser. I'm coming off of that creative high. It was such a fantastic experience. If you're enjoying these episodes and enjoying my podcast, I would love for you to leave a review or a rating wherever you find your podcasts. This feeds the algorithm monster. This is how people find my podcast, and I would really appreciate it. Bye.